flatten these bits and round them off. And we'll do this with a peen hammer, using the round bit there. I'm just going to flatten that rivet off there so it doesn't fall back through again, taking care to work in a circular motion to make sure it's evenly flattened all over. You can use the other bit of the hammer to make sure that that's nice and flat and even, and that's a good job. Nice new rivet on there, new hinge, a lot more life left in this bangle for the customer. And we just take any sharp edges off of the work that we've done. We don't want it scratching the wrist or the inside, chafing. I'll give it a good old going over. Just check with your finger to make sure that it's nice and smooth, and there you go, job done. This is an antique silver locket. Now the problem is that that centre piece there has come away. It's been made in different components, and that centre egg shaped piece there is coming away on the inside, the customer noticed. Now the only way to do this, we can't use silver solder because previously it's been lead soldered, so we have to now stick with the lead solder. So remove all the components and have a good look at it, check it all over, and you can see what needs to be done. We're using Baker's soldering fluid and I'm using this soldering iron here, which I've bent to make it easier to apply. It's got a bit of copper on the end there. We need to heat that up and then we'll apply some lead to it and we'll see what happens. I've applied a bit of the soldering fluid to our work where we're going to be working. That will help the lead to flow easier. Now we're going to heat up the end of our soldering iron. Nice big flame, and I've got a piece of lead you can see just sticking out there. That's to pick up, when I get it nice and hot I can pick up a bit of lead off that bar lying on the bench there. And it wants to really get to a good old temperature there. If you dip it into the baker's fluid, it will make the lead nice and clean on the end. You'll see it. This takes a bit of effort, this is, to get this nice and glowing. So all the heat is directed towards the soldering iron. There you go, bit of lead on there. And no heat at all will be directed to the locket. Once that's got certain heat, that will just flow where we've put the baker's fluid on the locket. Okay, so keeping a constant heat on that soldering iron, and then when we touch it to the locket it should just run off nicely where we want it. We have a closer look. You can see there the gap just towards you there. And let's see what happens when we apply the end of that hot soldering iron with a bit of lead on it. It's the right temperature. And now you see it running there. And that's closed that gap up nicely. A little bit around that side, a little bit around the back. Make sure that centre piece now is nice and fixed. A lot of Victorian and antique lockets used silver soldering, so you've got to be careful when repairing these, because put any heat at all near them and you'll end up with a load of bits in your lap. Bit more baker's fluid round there. That'll make the solder flow where we want it to. There we go. And that's just about right. Let's have a look at it. So that's nice and fixed now there. And we've got the lead exactly where we wanted it. This is a customer's order to make a silver horseshoe, and this is the picture I was given, so we'll try and copy this the best we can. The customer wants it to be a particular size, so what I've done is I've reduced it on the printer to the size that I actually am going to make it, which is, I've been told, 1 inch long. So now we'll use that drawing. What I've done is I've cut it out, put it onto a piece of silver sheet. I've left a bit attached to the silver sheet so I can hold on to that. Now we can cut the shape out using our piercing saw. Always allowing a bit more material. Don't cut away too much, because we can always file up to our where we want it. Now we have it there. We cut the middle bit out, and I'm just, because I've got that bit to hold on to, I'm just going to file the excess and bring it up to the line. Make sure it's nice and neat. That's a number 4 half round file I'm using there. You do get clogged up, so you might have to renew them maybe once every 6 months, every year, depending. And once we've got that shape more or less where we want it, and then I will cut off the remaining piece, and let's just shape this a little bit. So instead of soldering bits on the end, if we just file it down, we can leave those 2 little bits sticking up. We'd normally do that. Try and use common sense and the least amount of soldering as we can do. So we've now got to punch those dome bits out. As I've never seen this before, I'm just copying exactly what it was on the picture the customer gave me. Now it's starting to look like it. Now we have to using a burr, round burr, I'm just going to cut out those little grooves either side as I saw in the photograph. Takes a bit of practice to use the burr like this because it can skid off and spoil the work, so make sure you get a good firm hold on it. You see I'm using the parallel pliers and really using the peg to its full advantage there, pressing down on it and keeping everything nice and steady. Once we've got these grooves either side, I'll then drill some holes and hopefully a bit of polishing and buffing, it should look quite nice. And there we have it. There's our picture that we were given, and there's our item. Looks good. If you want to do some cuttlefish casting, make sure you get nice big pieces of cuttlefish, nice flat working surfaces. Cut the ends off with our hacksaw and then cut right through the middle. Now, to get two flat surfaces, just rub them together, a circular motion like that. Then some people you can rub them on sandpaper, a sheet if you like, but this works just as well. Keep them both moving. Okay, two flat surfaces. Now let's get our item, which I believe is a parrot in silver, and it wants to be in 9 carats, so I'm just going to cut off that jump ring there. We don't really need that at the moment. We can solder our 9 carat one on later. I'm just going to push it gently halfway into one half there, about, not at the top, but about, I suppose, half an inch from the top, and then try and put them together. It's nice and square, and push firmly. Give them a good firm push so you know that there's no gaps. Now if we get a bit of rough sandpaper there, we want to flatten off both ends, keeping a good firm grip, keeping those two pieces together. Now we're doing all this because when we come to put it back together later, we've got nice flat edges to work to, and I'm not going to put a mark on the bottom. That's just a guide mark on the bottom. Turn it round, and I'm going to put two either side on the top, so when this goes back together those lines will line up. And that's, I'm going to cut this bit out later, so I'm just going to make a little mark there where my pouring hole is going to be. And I've got some little cut marks on the side. That's where the tying wire is going to lie in there, keeping it firm all the time. The little item's still inside there, it hasn't moved, and there it is. So now if we take our little parrot out, make sure you don't make any finger marks or anything on there, and now when we put that back together we've got plenty of guide marks to go to. I'm just putting some little vents there from the parrot where it was to the edge, so to let the heat out, and then I'm going to put it together, and I can tell exactly where that is. I've got a line on the bottom, I've got two lines on the top, it's nice and square where I've put the sandpaper, and now I've got some marks for the tying wire. And that will be on there nice and firm because it'll fit into those grooves on the side. See, it's all coming together. Put two wires on, make it nice and secure. And just to make sure you don't need any excess there, so nice and trim, and there we have it. So we've cut our pouring hole on the top, and we've cut it down to where the parrot was, just going into the indent where the little item was, so the metal can pour straight into it. Now I'm using oxyacetylene here, which I find a lot quicker. It's just a hobby set, and I've got a bit of borax there, and when I've heated this bit of 9-carat scrap up, I'm going to just apply a bit of borax. I'm going to remove the flame there, and I've wedged this cuttlefish into a little tin there. It's got some sand on the bottom, and that's really firm in there, so nothing can move around. And now when it's running, you'll see the gold start to spin, and when it's starting to spin, that's the right temperature for it to pour. A nice swift action in. So that's gone straight into that pouring hole, and hopefully that's it. When it's cooled down, we've got our little parrot there. I've got a bit of extra filing and cutting to do where the gold has just overflowed at the top, but that's okay, that's meant to happen. We can cut that bit off. We've got the basic shape, and with a bit of filing and a bit of, maybe they're using the burr, and we can get that looking right. Now this was one that I did earlier, which was an Alsatian dog. I'm just cutting off the excess there that was in the pouring hole. So that's the original on the right. I believe it was made of pewter. I took the shape from, and the new 9-carat casting on the left. So anything that's available to clean off the excess, like a little carborundum wheel there, readily available at most suppliers. And what I'll do is I'll hold it in a little bit of leather there, because it can get very, very hot. So I just want to shape it, and this is where you can use your artistic touch. You can put as much detail in as possible, and try and make it as much like the original as possible. Always remember just to take tiny little bits at a time, and that way you will not take away too much and therefore have to resolder or replace. So little by little. And there we have it. There's our original, and there's our 9-carat copy. Come out alright. I'm sure the customer will be happy with that, so we can put a gold jump ring on that, and it's ready. So now for polishing. I've got a sovereign ring there, and I'm starting off with a left hand mop with Tripoli on it, which is the first polishing, and making sure that I'm not going to polish out the solder there on the shank. So I don't want to put it that way, I want to put it the opposite way to what the line of solder is. Good trick that, because this will remove scratches and buff marks. It will also remove solder if you press too hard. If there's any awkward little bits like on the side there, I will use this little brush here to get into those little bits there. So you need a few bits and pieces to complete the polishing. Now it gets very hot when polishing, so we're just touching it at the mop, and we're keeping a very, very tight grip on it, because that mop will snatch out. We don't want to be too high up the mop because it will drag down. We're sort of just below the center of the mop, if you like, and again I'm just touching the mop, because you can take quite a lot of gold away, or silver, if you hold it there too long. Anyway, it will drop it because it'll get very, very hot. So we're just removing the scratch marks, being careful of the claws, because if you put new claws on and you polish too hard, you'll just take them back off again. So you can see they're just touching, and then keep looking to see how much more you can do it. Now the right hand side of the mop, this is the rouge, or the finishing polish, and as I said before, I can put a little brush on there, and you can get right into claws, bit of Tripoli on there, right into awkward little places, and that will polish out there where the brush or the mop can't get to. I'm just going to get into the claws there on that little 18-carat boat ring. Make a nice finish on the claws and around the edge of that sovereign ring. So we've got our very soft mop there with some rouge. Red is very fine, you can finish off with that. And after we've put the Tripoli on, we'll just finish off the polishing, get a really nice shine on these rings. And again, making sure that we're not missing any file marks, or if we are, then I need to go back to the peg again, and because this is all the hard work's been done. Now the finishing is a cherry on the cake, so make sure you do a really good job here. Very dirty job. There's all sorts of different things that people use, finger gloves and things to stop the heat from transferring, so I would have a good look at what's available, but in time your fingers will toughen up and you'll be able to stand more and more heat and polish a little bit longer. There's this buckle ring that I did, again with working on the mop. We're keeping a very tight grip on whatever it is we're working with, because these mops will snatch and they can fling a ring right to the other side of the room, or it can bash it up against the side of the mop or the case, and it can do a lot of damage. So really hold on tight and just add it very gently. There's a finger felt here for the inside of the ring, and I use my little piece of leather to hold on to it there, because that gets very hot. I'm just holding the front of the ring there to stop it from spinning around, but most of the heat is transferred to the shank where I've got that bit of leather there. You can see it, making sure, because I'm not going to wear my fingers away. Now if you're working with chain, bangles, bracelets, you've got to keep a very firm hold. And what I'm doing there, I'm just doing a small section of the chain at a time. I'm actually holding it very tight against my piece of leather there. And I'm pulling it through, as you can see, just to do a little bit more at a time, and then I'll turn it round and do the other side. I'm actually holding it with my thumb at the top and with my left hand at the bottom. There's nothing dangling free, there's no bits of chain dangling around, because it will snatch and catch on that mop and you could end up with 50 pieces of chain. So please be very careful. This takes a lot of concentration here. And after I've done that, I'll put it in a little sieve, a little tea sieve there, plastic ones, don't use metal ones because that will scratch the metal, and into the ultrasonic cleaner and leave it in there for a while. In the ultrasonic I've got ammonia, soda crystal,